It was an ordinary Saturday morning when my wife, Sarah, rushed into the living room, her face a mix of frustration and panic. "I can't find my wedding rings," she exclaimed. Little did I know, this simple statement would spiral into a whirlwind of suspicion and heartbreak that would change my life forever. My name is Mike, and like many couples in their 30s, Sarah and I had built a life together filled with love, laughter, and shared dreams. We met in college, bonded over late-night study sessions, and quickly became inseparable. By the time we tied the knot 5 years later, we thought we knew everything about each other. But as the weeks passed without those rings, I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was amiss. At first, I tried to reassure her. "Don't worry, they'll turn up. Maybe you left them at your mom's house." But Sarah's reaction was strange. She seemed overly anxious and kept checking her phone as if she were expecting a call or text that would never come. As days turned into weeks, Sarah's demeanor shifted. She became distant, often lost in thought, and her late nights out with friends turned into frequent absences. I wanted to believe she was just stressed from work, but the lack of communication started to gnaw at me. Friends had noticed the change in her too, whispering to me that they were worried about her. "Maybe you should talk to her," they suggested, "but how do you address something you can't quite put your finger on?" One evening, as I was cleaning up our bedroom, I stumbled upon her purse. It was an uncharacteristic mess, with receipts and random items spilling out. A sense of curiosity overwhelmed me, and against my better judgment, I decided to take a look. What I found inside made my heart race. There was a use protection buried at the bottom. Staring at the rubber in disbelief, I felt a mix of anger and betrayal. How could this be happening? I knew I had to confront her, but how do you bring something like this up without looking paranoid? With my heart pounding, I called Sarah to come home. As I waited for her, I mentally prepared myself for what I hoped would be a conversation that would clarify everything. When she walked through the door, I tried to stay calm. "Hey, I found something in your purse," I began, my voice trembling slightly. I showed her the condom, and her reaction was immediate. The color drained from her face as she stammered, "That's not mine. I don't know how that got there." Her defensive tone only fueled my suspicions. The woman I thought I knew was suddenly unrecognizable. As she continued to deny everything, my mind raced. Was this a lie? Or was I truly misreading the situation? Feeling lost and confused, I realized I couldn't confront this alone. I needed evidence, something that would either confirm my worst fears or help me understand what was happening in my marriage. That's when I made the difficult decision to hire a private investigator. I wanted to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. In the following days, I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions, fear, sadness, and a growing sense of urgency. I went through the motions at work, but my mind was preoccupied with thoughts of Sarah and what I might uncover. The dread of waiting for the investigator's findings was overwhelming, yet I felt I had no other choice. As I waited, I began to think back on our relationship. Memories flooded my mind, the laughter, the inside jokes, the plans we had for the future. Were those moments genuine? Or was I just a fool, blind to the signs of her infidelity? I tried to focus on the present, but doubt consumed me. When the investigator finally contacted me, he suggested we meet to discuss his findings. My heart raced with anticipation and fear. What would he reveal? Would it confirm my suspicions or would it all be a misunderstanding? I steeled myself for the confrontation ahead, knowing that the truth, whatever it may be, was just around the corner. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on my chest as I entered the coffee shop to meet the private investigator, Tony. I could feel my palms sweating and my heart racing. What was he about to reveal? Would this be the moment my world shattered, or would it finally bring clarity? I sat at a corner table, the aroma of coffee filling the air, but I couldn't focus on anything but the impending conversation. When Tony arrived, he looked as serious as I felt. His demeanor shifted the atmosphere around us from casual to tense. He slid into the chair across from me, and without wasting any time, he pulled out a folder. "Mike, I've gathered some information on your wife," he said, opening the folder. My heart raced as I leaned in, trying to prepare myself for the worst. I've been tracking her movements, and I have some photographs. The first image he showed me was of Sarah at a local park, sitting on a bench with another man. They were laughing, and in that moment, it felt like my heart was being ripped from my chest. It was a simple snapshot, but the context was devastating. My wife looked so carefree, so different from the woman I had seen in recent weeks. Just a friend? I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tony shook his head, pulling out more photos. This one is from last week, he said, handing me another picture. There they were again, this time, they were holding hands, leaning into each other as they walked. Who is this guy? I demanded, my anger boiling over. Tony took a deep breath before answering, his name is Jake. He's a coworker. I found out they've been spending time together outside of work. As I sat there, processing the information, my mind flashed back to Sarah's excuses about late nights at the office. All the times I had trusted her word without question now felt like a cruel joke. How long has this been going on? I asked, feeling the pit in my stomach deepen. It looks like it started about 3 months ago, he replied, his eyes sympathetic. I have more evidence if you want to see it. I could hardly breathe. The anger bubbled beneath the surface, mixing with feelings of betrayal, confusion, and heartbreak. No, that's enough, I said, shaking my head. I didn't need to see more. The weight of what I had already seen was more than I could bear. As Tony continued to talk about what he had discovered, I felt like I was in a fog. I could barely concentrate on his words, my mind raced through a million scenarios. How could Sarah do this to me? Had our entire relationship been a lie? In that moment, I realized I couldn't sit back any longer. I needed to confront her, but I had to be strategic. I had been blindsided before, and now I was determined not to be caught off guard again. It was time to fight back, and I needed the right resources. After my meeting with Tony, I immediately contacted a lawyer who came highly recommended, a man known for his aggressive tactics in divorce cases. You need someone who can go to war for you, my friend had said, and that's exactly what I needed. When I met with the lawyer, a sharp-dressed man named Mark, I laid out everything, the evidence from the private investigator, my marriage history, and the emotional toll this betrayal was taking on me. Mark listened intently, his expression serious as he noted down details. Mike, you're in a tough situation, but with this evidence, we can make a strong case, he said. We'll go after her for everything she's worth. His confidence was reassuring, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe I could come out of this stronger. As I left the lawyer's office, my heart was racing with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. I knew I had to confront Sarah before moving forward with any legal action. The thought of facing her felt daunting, but I couldn't allow fear to hold me back. I planned to have the conversation in our living room, a space that once felt safe but now seemed tainted. I wanted her to feel the gravity of her actions, to understand the pain she had caused. The day came when I decided to confront her, and I felt sick to my stomach, but I was resolute. When Sarah walked in, she looked surprised to see me waiting for her. Hey, what's up? She asked, her casual tone making my blood boil. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what I had to say. Sarah, we need to talk, I said, my voice steady but firm. She glanced at me, a flicker of worry crossing her face. Is everything okay? I held up the photos from the private investigator, watching her expression change as the realization hit her. What are these? She asked, her voice faltering. I didn't sugarcoat my words. I know about Jake. I know you've been cheating on me, I declared, my heart pounding in my chest. Her face drained of color, and for a moment, she seemed genuinely shocked. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I felt a storm of emotions swirling inside me, anger, betrayal, but also a newfound determination. This was it, the moment I had been preparing for, where I would reclaim my life and expose the truth behind Sarah's deceit. As I entered the courtroom, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. I could see Sarah seated at the plaintiff's table, her expression a mix of defiance and uncertainty. Next to her was her lawyer, a slick man who oozed confidence. I took a deep breath, knowing that my shark lawyer, Mark, was ready to go to battle on my behalf. Mark stood up first, addressing the judge with a calm yet authoritative presence. Your Honor, we're here today to expose a betrayal of trust that has irrevocably damaged my client's life. My client, Mike, discovered that his wife, Sarah, was engaged in an extramarital affair with her coworker. We have substantial evidence to support this claim, including photographic proof. As he spoke, I felt a surge of validation wash over me. This wasn't just about the affair, it was about reclaiming my dignity and standing up for myself. I watched as Sarah shifted in her seat, her facade beginning to crack under the weight of the accusations. Mark presented the photographs from Tony, and I could see the color draining from Sarah's face with each image. The court was silent, the gravity of the situation sinking in for everyone present. Mark's strategy was brilliant. He highlighted not just the infidelity, but also the emotional toll it had taken on me. Mike was not only deceived in his marriage, but he also suffered severe emotional distress, Mark argued, turning to me. Would you like to share your side, Mike? My heart raced as I stood up to speak. I thought I knew my wife. We built a life together, and I trusted her completely. To find out she was cheating was devastating. I never imagined it would come to this, but I need to protect myself and move forward. When it was Sarah's turn to speak, she tried to downplay her actions. Yes, I made a mistake, she said, her voice shaky. But I was feeling neglected. We were growing apart, and I was just trying to find some happiness. Her words were like nails on a chalkboard. How could she justify her actions? You chose to betray me, I shot back, feeling the anger bubbling to the surface. You didn't even try to talk to me about our issues. You went behind my back and destroyed everything we built. The judge listened intently, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. I knew I had to remain composed, even as my emotions threatened to boil over. As the hearing progressed, the evidence mounted against Sarah. Mark had done his homework, and he was relentless. He brought in character witnesses who testified to my integrity and commitment, contrasting it with Sarah's actions. Just when I thought the tide was turning in my favor, Sarah's lawyer tried to pull a fast one. Your Honor, he began, I have a witness who would like to testify on Sarah's behalf. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Who could they possibly bring in that would turn the tables? When the witness stepped forward, my heart sank. It was Jake, her affair partner. Jake tried to paint a picture of a loveless marriage, claiming that Sarah was unhappy. But the truth was evident, he was a manipulative coward trying to save himself. Mark skillfully dismantled Jake's credibility, exposing his motives and the lies he told to justify his actions. Isn't it true, Mark pressed, that you never tried to have a conversation with Mike about his marriage? Instead, you chose to exploit his wife's vulnerabilities? Jake stammered, and I could see Sarah's face flush with humiliation as the truth was laid bare before everyone in the courtroom. After hours of testimony, the judge finally called for a recess. I felt like I had been holding my breath for hours. When we returned, the judge looked at both of us with a solemn expression. I have reviewed the evidence presented, he said, and I find that Sarah's actions were not only unethical but have caused significant emotional distress to Mike. He ruled in my favor, granting me the divorce and awarding me a fair settlement that recognized the pain and suffering I had endured. Walking out of the courtroom felt surreal. I had faced my fears and fought back against the betrayal. As I stepped into the sunlight, I realized I had taken back control of my life. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to embrace them. The days following the trial were filled with reflection. I took time to heal and rediscover who I was outside of my marriage. Friends rallied around me, offering support and encouragement. I began to focus on my passions, spending time with family and friends, and rediscovering my hobbies. Looking back, I realized that the betrayal had taught me invaluable lessons about trust and self-worth. I learned to set boundaries and to recognize that my happiness was not dependent on anyone else. I began to prioritize my mental health and surround myself with people who truly valued me. As I closed this chapter of my life, I felt a sense of freedom wash over me. I was ready to embrace new opportunities and experiences, knowing that I could weather any storm. If you've ever faced betrayal or a difficult relationship, I encourage you to share your experiences in the comments below. How did you overcome it? What lessons did you learn? Let's support one another on this journey of healing and self-discovery.